Yeah, I'll kind of look at my experience now that I've been in my current position for the last 2 years. Um, I actually, it's funny that Nick, talks about NYO. So when I was a senior in high school, that was the first year that they offered the library fellowship, and like I had applied for it, just kind of being like, huh, like this is something that seems interesting. And they actually had 120 people apply for the position, which is kind of like crazy that like people were like, oh, this is an interesting thing. And I didn't end up getting the position, but it was really insightful, the process of just kind of seeing like the questions they were asking me, like what they were expecting of the role of a librarian. Paul Beck at the time was the person who was kind of heading that off. And he was very kind to me. Like I was the runner up, and he was like, like, thank you so much. Like we just, there was somebody who just knew a little bit more, but here's some great resources, and like, let me know where you end up going to your undergrad. I can try to connect you with the librarian, whoever that is there. So I ended up going to Carnegie Mellon, and so Pittsburgh Symphony, great orchestra. And at the time, my first year was just kind of, really busy with the performance aspect of me being a horn player. And so I hadn't like thought too much about the library part, but then as the year kind of went on, I kind of realized that I knew that I liked performance, but it most likely was not going to be the thing that I did for the rest of my life. And so, okay, come on, Pepper. And so it was not going to be the thing that I did for the rest of my life. And so I was really grateful to my advisor at the time. Shout out Lance Leduc. Thank you, for him being like, what are some other things you're interested in? And I was like, well, I applied for this like library thing when I was in high school, but I don't really know how to go about it because I don't know anybody in the field, or what the heck, where do I start? And so like he did some research for me, found out about MOLA, and like that's where all the internships and jobs are posted. And so that was when I applied for Brevard. And I mean, I knew nothing. Like I got really lucky in the sense that they were willing to take a chance on me for that. It was something that I was really interested in doing, and that I felt that I had at least the basic like organizational skills and the passion to be interested in the work. And that summer was definitely like very transformative in terms of seeing like, oh wow, this is something that is hard. It's not easy, but it is also something that's really rewarding, and I do actually really like this thing. And so it kind of led me down this path of what I talked about in my takeovers summer after summer after summer during my undergrad. Is I just tried to get more of these opportunities, and I got involved with my student work, like work study, was able to get into working with the wind band and the orchestra, eventually getting to work with the Pittsburgh Symphony for a semester, and just like building up on these opportunities for my training. All that to say that it took a lot of seeking. It took a lot of like grabbing those opportunities and like trying to put myself out there, because it's not just so simple of, oh, you go to this school, you go get this degree, you go take a lesson with somebody, like whatever. There's kind of, people know as a performance, like this is the path of like how you do this. And every librarian I've talked to kind of has a different path of how they got to the place they are now. And so to me, and it was something I even looked at, because CMU offers this of you can create your own degree at Carnegie Mellon. So I was taking all these calligraphy and bookbinding classes and like things that I thought would help me along my library journey to become a better librarian. And so I was like, well, maybe I could apply all of those. Like I was taking orchestration class, like all this different stuff. I could create this own degree, and that would be something really unique that nobody else had. But I was just kind of, it was a little too late along in my journey. Like it was my junior year, just when I would have had to stay an extra year for some of the other classes I wanted to take. But all that to say is that I think it's really important that something is developed, like Joe was saying, a minor, a certificate, because right now it's kind of like trial by fire. Like you have to get one of these summer festival experiences. You have to know somebody at a symphony orchestra, and it's just not accessible to everybody, if I'm being honest. Like I'm very lucky and privileged that like the first summer, like I made $1,000 at Brevard before taxes. Like not everybody can do that. You know what I mean? Like that's pennies. Like, and summer after that, no money, because it was an internship as a fellowship. So like not everybody is as fortunate so that they can just like take a whole 10 weeks off and just like go learn and do this thing. And so there just needs to be more accessible learning opportunities for people who are interested in our field. And I'm hoping that to be a part of that, to create more opportunities in the future, is something I'm working on.
Thank you for saying that. You know, we are all lucky to have been, you know, awarded positions at festivals. I mean, I'm at Aspen right now, but I've worked at other summer festivals before that, and it's pure luck, you know. I think at least with, you know, there's like, you know, groups of librarians that have come into the field at different times. So at least like with my group, you know, there are some things that you guys definitely have the advantage on. You know, so it's just interesting to see, you know. And you're right. You're so right, Simone. I mean, it's a privilege to be able to take these summer festivals and to, you know, be able to do internships. And I would love for there to be more accessibility of information. Like, how many of y'all knew about the testing portion of an audition process? You know, yeah, Blake, you just went through this. You know, it's a thing that completely caught me off guard. No resources mentioned. You know, you need to be able to take a skills test. Why isn't this talked about? Why aren't there study guides? Why aren't we having, you know, an annual study session at MOLA conferences? You know, there just needs to be, yeah, more accessibility to information if we're looking to advance this field and grow this field and just diversify it. And I think that's important for the future of it, because it can't maintain, right? I mean, especially right now in 2020, everything's different. You know, all of our libraries have been thrown into the air, and we're trying to figure out, how do we safely get music to our musicians? How are we prepping that music to get to them? What are we doing with the music afterwards? Like, everything is different. We're having to ask publishers different questions. And it's just pushing so many boundaries that, I mean, I'm here for. I think it's growing all of us as professionals. It's exciting, but I digress. More accessibility of information and resources. Thank you so much, Simone, for saying that, because it's vital.
I agree.
I think, like, related to that, since we sort of all started with the same information around us in terms of what we could find on the internet and who we could talk to and ask for sort of ideas of what this profession is like, all of our journeys to becoming a librarian or to becoming interested in the profession are kind of like mosaics of the same pieces. So like I would say I'm kind of similar to Nick. Like in high school, I found out about librarianship and I was like, this is really interesting. It seems to combine a lot of things that I like to do and that I would do for fun anyway. And so from there, I just reached out to the people that I directly knew, you know, to my director at school, my private instructor, to see what they could tell me. And those are the people that kind of opened the doors for me to be able to take those first steps into the water and kind of figure it out from there. But I think you guys both make a really good point that, like, I was able to spend one summer as a volunteer. Like I reasonably could have taken a job somewhere else doing something, you know, kind of mildly related to what I might want to do with my future as a student. But I was lucky enough that I could take a summer to be in this volunteer position. And then on top of that, I was lucky enough that in the next coming years, they saw value in what I was doing and how I was progressing, that they offered me a part-time position and I was then paid for that. But even if someone, you know, was like me and they were able to take the time to do a volunteer position, maybe their local orchestra or whatever it is doesn't have the budget to, you know, to support them monetarily, and maybe they value their work and what they're doing, but they just don't have the resources to show that in that kind of fashion. So it's very situational. And like, even if we, you know, myself and somebody else in a different city started out with the same baseline based on what the opportunities around us are, we would have totally different career paths just based on what's there. So I think figuring out a course of study would be an interesting way to like see how that not necessarily levels it, but sort of gives everybody a baseline so that there's a common understanding of what basic skills are and what, you know, is sort of the acceptable norm and what's above the norm and what's below the norm.